All right, let's just dive right in. The author of our source text today poses a really massive, profound question. How exactly did the Earth begin? And maybe more importantly, who does it really belong to? Now, science obviously answers the first part of that question in its own way, and various religious texts offer their own unique perspectives, right? But it's that second part, who the Earth actually belongs to, that really forms the beating heart of our explainer today.
Welcome to this explainer. Today we are unpacking Nida Fazli's deeply moving essay about this incredibly stark contrast between ancient empathy and modern apathy. We're going to be looking at some fascinating stories from the past, examining a pretty terrifying environmental warning, and ending with a highly personal story that honestly is going to make you stop and think. So let's get into it.
Section 1. The Earth belongs to all.
Section 2. Great empathy of the past.
So our story begins with this really profound truth established by the author. Initially, the entire world was basically one giant interconnected family, where absolutely every living being had an equal share. But over time, humans used their intellect to aggressively claim the Earth as their exclusive property. We threw up massive walls and basically evicted other species. But if we look back in time, things were radically different. Think about King Suleiman, who lived over 1,000 years before Christ. According to the texts, he wasn't just a ruler of humans, he ruled all animals and birds, and, get this, he could actually understand their languages. One day, while he was marching with this massive army, he heard some ants panicking. They were terrified of being trampled by his horses. So what does Suleiman do? He halts his entire army, just so they wouldn't crush these frightened ants. He declared to them that God had made him a protector, not a threat, and that he was there to offer love, not trouble.
Then, there's this incredible story about the great Sindhi poet Sheikh Ayaz's father. One day, he's washing up at the village well, comes home, and sits down to eat his dinner. Just as he breaks a piece of bread, he notices a single black ant crawling on his arm. He literally abandons his meal right then and there, stands up, and leaves the house. When his wife asks if he didn't like the food, he tells her that he accidentally made a creature homeless, and he was walking all the way back to the well to return the ant to its proper dwelling. Just imagine doing that today, abandoning your dinner because you accidentally displaced a single insect. That is a level of everyday mindfulness and empathy that we have almost completely lost.
And you know, this empathy even extended to these really profound spiritual realizations. The text tells a startling story of a prophet named Nuh. He once crossed paths with a badly injured dog. Nuh actually shooed the dog away in disgust, calling it dirty. But the dog replied with an absolutely earth-shattering realization. It said, "Neither am I a dog by choice, nor are you a human by preference. The Creator who made us both is exactly the same."
Our source beautifully integrates this poetic thought to really hammer the point home. When our physical bodies finally return to the Earth, the dust of a human and the dust of an animal mix entirely together. I mean, who can possibly identify which is which? Upon hearing the wounded dog's profound truth, Prophet Noah was struck with such immense guilt and empathy that he literally wept for the rest of his entire life.
Section 3. Nature's terrifying anger.
So what exactly happens when humanity completely forgets that historical empathy and pushes nature too far? Well, as populations absolutely explode, our once spacious living areas are shrinking into tight, cramped little matchbox houses. But human expansion doesn't stop there, does it? We're cutting down forests, we're driving birds away from our settlements with pollution, and in cities like Mumbai, developers are literally trying to shove the ocean backward just to steal its land for building. The text paints this incredibly vivid picture, kind of anthropomorphizing the sea in Mumbai. It tracks its rising anger step by step. At first, as builders started encroaching, the sea simply drew back its legs and sat down. Then, as less and less space remained, it squatted. Finally, totally out of space and completely out of patience, the sea stood up in massive anger. As the source notes, powerful entities usually don't get angry quickly, but man, when they do, they are absolutely impossible to stop. And the sea's terrifying revenge, it culminated in a super violent storm one night. It literally picked up 3 massive ships, as easily as a child tossing a ball, and threw them onto 3 different shores across Mumbai. One at Worli, one at Bandra Khardur Road, and the third right at the gateway of India. Despite all our human efforts to repair them, these ships were broken completely beyond saving. It's a pretty terrifying, real-world reminder that nature has an ultimate boundary. And human engineering? Yeah, it's no match for it when that boundary is crossed.
Section 4. A Mother's Atonement.
All right, let's zoom back in from the macro scale of environmental disasters to a deeply personal micro-level consequence. The author brings us right into his own childhood home in Gwalior to show us what living with everyday empathy used to look like. His mother lived by this incredibly strict set of empathetic rules. She genuinely believed that if you plucked leaves at sunset, the trees would weep. If you picked flowers at night, they'd curse you. She taught her kids to always salute the river to make it happy, and she strictly forbade anyone from bothering the pigeons, seeing them as sacred messengers. To her, these weren't just quirky superstitions, they were the absolute laws of the house.
But then, a tragedy struck their home. A cat managed to break one of the 2 pigeon eggs resting in a nest inside their house. Completely heartbroken, the author's mother climbed onto a stool to move that second egg to safety. But in her desperate attempt to help, the egg slipped from her hands and shattered on the floor. The parent pigeons were fluttering around in deep distress. Seeing their absolute pain, the mother just burst into tears. She felt so terribly guilty that she fasted for the entire day. She ate nothing, drank nothing, and constantly prayed to God to forgive her for this one tragic accident.
Section 5. Changing Humans and Society. Now, jumping from the author's past childhood in Gwalior to his modern adult life in a flat in Versova, Mumbai, we see exactly how much society has shifted in just one single generation. Because human expansion basically destroyed the local forests around Versova, local wildlife lost their habitats. A pair of these displaced pigeons, desperately looking for some kind of shelter, ended up nesting inside the author's apartment, right in his library. While they were really just trying to raise their chicks, they naturally created a mess, occasionally knocking things over. It kind of proves that hungry pigeons are incredibly harsh critics of classic poetry by Kabir and Ghalib.
And this is where we hit a really stark, honestly jarring generational contrast. On one side, you have a mother who fasted, wept, and prayed for an entire day just because she accidentally broke a bird's egg. On the other side, we have his modern wife. Annoyed by the daily inconvenience and the mess of the nesting birds, her solution is swift and totally sterile. She simply puts up a wire net, moves the chicks away, and firmly shuts the window against them.
And so, we're left with this completely heartbreaking image. The 2 parent pigeons return to find their home totally blocked off. They now just sit silently outside the closed, wire-meshed window all night long. They've been locked out of their makeshift home, and because the forests are all gone, they have absolutely nowhere else to go.
I really want to leave you with this final, genuinely haunting question drawn right from the author's reflection. Today, there's no King Suleiman around to understand the silent language of those displaced birds. There's no compassionate mother left to stay awake and pray for their suffering. In our modern, walled-off world, where we constantly push back the seas and shut our windows to nature, we have to stop and ask ourselves, who is left to mourn for the pain of others? And more importantly, will it be you? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I really hope it gives you something profound to think about today.